I'm Jules from Scott Dunn Private and Scott Dunn, who has offices all over the world in Singapore, in the States and London. And I've been lucky enough to be invited here to this extraordinary camp by Angama. This is Angama Amboseli. Over here is Rosco, who is the CEO of Angama. Has a bit of a history in this part of the world. Was at Miavana, which is my favorite island in the world of Madagascar. Now is here. This morning, I think we left probably 6 hours ago, and we've traveled through into Amboseli National Park. What we did travel through, which was most important, was what they call the elephant corridor. And there we were lucky enough to meet Craig, who is there are a few left in the world, but has the largest tusks in the world. They call him the super tusker. He was so relaxed, he's so happy with the community who look after him. And there is this extraordinary story, which Rosco is going to tell us, about keeping these wonderful elephants happy for people like me to be privileged enough to see, and also the local communities who have their lives to live as well. Now, not only did we see Craig, but we had probably one of the most extraordinary sightings in the world. Wonderful Kilimanjaro took off a wonderful cloud, and there we had the snows, if there is such a book of Kilimanjaro, and we had Craig in front of it. It was probably one of the most incredible sights for someone who's been on safari for 25 years, lived in Africa, and I'm now going to take you for Rosco to really explain to you how complicated but how wonderful this whole story is.
Thanks, Jules, and delighted to have you here. And I think this part of the world is the kind of jewel in the crown of where human-wildlife conflict really resonates. And it's a very special story. And perhaps Salash will talk to us quite how important the Kimana sanctuary is within the ecosystem of the wider Amazon. And just to set the context, we've got this very extraordinary mixture of topography and weather systems and meteorology that really has this paradox of these swamps, this high water table in this very low, almost arid, very dusty bog. And it's fed off the beautiful mountains of Kilimanjaro, which are sacred to the Maasai community, where the Maasai forefathers were descended through the mountains down into the earth. So Kilimanjaro has this very spiritual protection, sort of real wrapping its arms around where we sit in Amboseli. And Salash will talk to us about how we are creating this ability to support the migration of these important animals. So Salash, perhaps you talk us through the migration of the ecosystem here.
Okay, so I'm Salash, a guide here in Amboseli, Angama Amboseli. So and I'll take you through this metallic map of the Amboseli ecosystem. So on the west we have Amboseli National Park, and then on the east we have another national park called Savo. And then a little bit on the northern east we have Cholo Hills National Park. And we got a sanctuary here in the mid. So we are acting as a hub, like we're linking all these three national parks through a very small place we call a pinch point, a corridor. So there's this very narrow part of the corridor where you can see the animals, mostly elephants. They have to cross the highway to come to the sanctuary so that they can go to the other national parks. So closer to this, like 75 meters wide corridor, there is a lot of human activities, like there is human settlement, there is people by the side of the road selling tomatoes, there's a lot of traffic, but you won't believe how incredible it is to see wildlife passing, enabling them to go to all these three national parks. So generally, you can imagine all these three national parks trying to fit inside this 75 meters wide corridor. So it's so fascinating. So the main challenge faced around here is human encroaching wildlife areas, of course, where the conflict emerges. But thanks to Angama Amboseli, which is a lodge that just set inside the sanctuary, which is a community-owned land. It's owned by like 844 different local members, and this is a way of making them benefit from conservation. And so now it will be very easy for them to embrace conservation, and maybe will leaving the encroachment of wildlife areas.
The conflict between human and wildlife that has led us to be wanting to be part of the story now migrating into the human-wildlife coexistence, which we're so proud to be a part of. And we're just still on a journey. But there's a really interesting theme between the fundamental nomadic pastoralism of the Maasai tribe, who follow their herd, who follow the water and therefore the grasslands, and by therefore having an international boundary between Tanzania and Kenya in the Amboseli ecosystem necessarily exacerbates the complexity. And then the challenges between both the Maasai culture, I suppose, of reciprocity in the fact of lions and elephants both attacking Maasai herds, which of course are sacrosanct. It's the cash economy beholden to the Maasai community, and then the elephants engaging in activity around farms that the Maasai, as a secondary source of income, are engaged with. And I suppose the incredible story of both big life and then commercial sustainable tourism, Angama in this instance, through the sanctuary, is a transformational process for supporting that conflict to a coexistence, which Alice, our head guide, so importantly reminds me.
That's fascinating, and I think that what you're doing here is extraordinary. I went through what they call today the pinch, I believe it was called, and it is quite amazing that these elephants, with their extraordinary brains and everything else, and they have a total history, almost a map, come through something which is so small I cannot tell you. So they come out of this huge expanse of the park through a corridor which is how many meters?
It's the width of a tennis court.
It's the width of a tennis court, and they sometimes get it wrong, and there are the fences there, and sometimes they do get it wrong. So would you like to explain how sometimes?
Yeah, well, I suppose this really sad story of a national route between Tanzania and Kenya, dissecting this most precious, genuine wildlife motorway, which is just but 3 kilometres from right where we're standing, and where this migration of these huge thousands of hectares of elephant sort of sanctuary move through a couple of tennis courts into then opening back into this corridor. And Tolstoy, whose tusks we've got here, these are a replica, an artist's replica of this very famous animal. And I'd like us to talk with Salash just about Tolstoy for a second, because I was fascinated with some of the character and the colour behind these magnificent animals, and actually sadly reminding us of that conflict and now coexistence. So, Salash, you told me about Tolstoy and how this slightly cheeky little chap unfortunately led to his demise at the age of 51. But please, as a former ranger for Big Life, who was focused on the human-wildlife conflict, and we'll see this from the United Nations video imagery from YouTube in a second, but from where we had the conflict, why was the likes of Tolstoy such a menace to both the community of Maasai and also farming itself?
Okay, thank you, Rosco. First, I can say it's actually very sad seeing the replica of this boy here. It's actually something, it's a shame that he died in the hands of humans. So, these boys, like, there's a group of banditry boys that were led by the late Tim, who as well died in the age of 51. He was uncle to the late Tolstoy, who I think he took over the leading of the gang.
So the gang's fore-founder was Tolstoy's uncle?
Yeah, the gang's fore-founder was Tolstoy's uncle, whose name was Tim.
And he's 51, so he's the same age as Craig is today, eh?
Yeah, Craig is around 52.
Ah.
So, Tolstoy died at the age of 51 years due to the human-wildlife conflict. So Tolstoy was raiding one of the tomato farms, and the desperate farmer protecting his farm speared him. And all of a sudden, after treatment, the situation was getting worse. You won't believe, it was very sad seeing him, like the leg was very swollen. He was using the tusk like crutches to walk. but he definitely died because of infection and all that.
And just remind me of the story that you mentioned yesterday when we were at Tolstoy's burial ground, which is still left there because it's very much part of the community of the herd's touchpoints. So how did this bandit gang operate? How did Tolstoy and his uncle protect the young bulls? And how did they operate as a little team of tomato farming raiders?
Yeah, this was actually very interesting. Like, if you found the late team, he will have like some boys, a convoy of boys surrounding him. And if you try to go closer to him, the boys will charge. And in return, he will take them to the tomato farms at night.
So he was the guide.
He was the
guide.
He was the guide.
And he had a gang.
He had a gang.
Okay. And so, unfortunately, it was at a point too far, and he received a spear, which led to an infection, led to the death of Tolstoy, and he remains very close to us in our history. And now, really, I'd be fascinated to understand more about this challenge of the lions, particularly with the Maasai and the traditions of hunting those that have hunted you, and that really ingrained culture of a strongman tribal tradition. How is that changing, and how would it change from why you need to kill a lion that's killed your cows? What's transition there?
Yeah, particularly about the lions in the ecosystem. Something so fascinating to speak about, because if you came in this ecosystem back in the year around 2005, there were less than 20 lions in the whole ecosystem from Amboseli to the Chulu. But now, as we speak, we have like over 250 lions, and a lot of efforts have been put forward by this organization called Big Life Foundation. Like initially, when they stepped in, the local people living around here are Maasai, and they keep livestock. So lions go and raid the village, eat livestock. So they killed them back for retaliation. So they just came up with a program, like predator compensation program. So it was a fund that actually it made like the local communities accept, because when a lion feasts on your livestock, you get compensated. It wasn't like 100% compensation; it was something like 70%. But yeah, it was somehow, at least, just like a good way to say sorry, other than going like without nothing.
Yeah, it's an amazing initiative of that wildlife compensation fund, of which of course we support significantly, which is a national fund, but Big Life are pioneering some of the real-time issues there. And what about the ego of the 30-year-old Maasai warrior that needs to kill a lion, that needs to impress, to find a girlfriend? How does the story of the individual that wanted to have the claim of killing a lion, how does that composition now?
So I think the origin of all these things, it started from the killing from retaliation, and thereby then the Maasai realized that to take down a lion was not easy. And now it was like, it is a man, a strong man, a brave man who can take down a lion.
Yeah.
And to become a narrative. And now the warriors at the age of around 20s to 30s, they go out and lions. Yeah, that's how they prove they're brave.
Yeah.
And they can win a lot of girlfriends.
Yeah.
Back in the village, and you can be identified a hero. But the narrative now changed. Like, we had this organization called Big Life again. They came with some nice tricks to mobilize the locals and all that. So they came up with a sport called Maasai Olympic. That was like telling the warriors, other than going and hunt for lions, come and hunt for medals.
Yeah.
And it really worked. The population started recovering like fully, and it was something fascinating because the guys supporting these Maasai Olympics, like we had a patron, the patron of the Maasai Olympic. He's a guy who's a 800 world record holder, Nekuta Rudisha, who is a Maasai. So he's the patron of the sport. So,
well, remind me not to race him, so if we can remove him from the next Olympics. So going back to that, that's amazing. It's a good story. And we saw these lions yesterday, these two male lions that we tracked yesterday morning at 5 a.m. And then we saw them, but they looked like geriatric lions covered in scars.
They
Why-
look like Scar.
Yeah,
and
they look like
his brother.
Scar, exactly. Why do these two young boys look so... like they've lived a world life already? What happened to these boys?
For the boys, so those two boys we saw, it's like they're not related, it's a coalition. So they were nomadic boys initially, they were just passing by the sanctuary, go in and out. And they found that the sanctuary is a very nice area, there's plenty of food and all that. But
In recent years?
yeah, there wasn't any pride, because the pride of the last pride of lions that was here in the sanctuary was killed back in the year 2002 due to human wildlife conflict and all that. So when these lions found the coalition, they went like far to the midway to Chulu, and they went and fought. They came with a lot of scars, and we saw immediately after like 2 or 3 days, we saw lionesses following. So the scars came with a price.
So they left this sanctuary, through the double tennis court, into Savo, fought for their families, and have brought them back now.
Came back with the gorgeous
Yeah.
ladies we saw.
Well, there we
yesterday.
go.
Yeah, so that's kind of is an indication that the sanctuary is like fully recovering, like
So-
having the lions coming naturally.
So how does that? So obviously there's all these interweaving stories which are fascinating. So where does that leave our contribution within the tourism industry, if I call it that, because there's a lot more. Some of us are more sustainable, some of us are more philanthropic. But where does it leave? How much can we help you as a tourism industry, so to speak, to actually protecting and making so much of this come true and the jigsaw stay together?
Well, I'm genuinely tingling when you ask that. Having worked in military, other sectors, finance sectors, how do we all contribute to make the world a slightly better place? And I'm really passionate that providing good jobs and generating green equity value as an alternative, sustainable economy is the best way to create the conditions for success. And it's about the mindset of the warrior. When we talk about sustainability and changing for good these places that are so precious to us, we think actually, what does it mean to the human being who wants to provide for their family? And that's, I think, so important. And when we look at the strategic picture down to that tactical image. And Salash and Alison, the team here, remind me that actually every time a guest comes, they contribute to our ability to generate good jobs. And 70% of our staff here, like Salash and Alison, these people, are from this area. And Salash talks to me with real emotion about having seen it from the other side, where your cattle is your only income. And it's everything to you. One El Nino, one lack of rainfall, one lion attack can decimate generational wealth. To now, where we have 844 landlords. 844. And every one of those landlords has an equal share of a lease now for the next 50 years. So just by leaving this land as it is, they're getting a lease for their grandchildren's schooling now. And without any other income stream, just by leasing the land, which would otherwise have been a dust bowl and a nomadic pastoralist family. And then, so as Salash reminded me, with good jobs, and then with the kind of symbiotic relationships with Big Life and Angama Foundation, which has put about just under $2.5 million into sustainable, sort of people-focused community projects over the last since 2015. Then schools are coming, improved education is coming, and with that, then the regenerative nature of these lands brings more lions, more animals, which is why every time a guest comes, they contribute to this network for good growth. And it starts with just good jobs, with good engagement, with good ways of operating, with then the byproduct of this spectacular increase in these wild places, with the addition of these types of conversations that put these places that are so precious to us on the map.
And make people understand why they're coming here, what they're contributing. It's not just going out today to see the extraordinary Craig, but it's actually contributing all the way along to every single household here and the sustainability and the future of the animals here and everything else. And that's really important.
And it's the best holiday you can have at the same time.
Oh my God, I didn't want to say that, but it has been the most extraordinary 6 hours this morning that we've ever had.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
Well, thank you for being here, and from all of us, sustainable commercial business for long-term growth is just awesome.
Well, people are really interested in that, and I think that a lot of our Scott Dunn and Scott Dunn Private members, they actually love to come and get involved on whatever level it is. They're not just here to have a holiday, they're here to have an experience and memories that I'm going to cry now, I'm terrible, that they're going to take home forever.
It's powerful,
It's
isn't it?
so powerful what's happening here.
Take only memories,
So thank you.
And leave a legacy. And
Absolutely.
Thanks to these guys that we are guests of.
Legends.
Lucky. Yeah, and again, I well up when I think that our children can be part of this. I mean, it's breathtaking for me. So
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
As well, we've seen like many guests traveling now. They don't just like traveling like tourists. They want to make an impact, like positive impact to where they go, like an influence. So we're so happy with our guests coming. It's helping us to be part of the solution of what's happening and what's changing.
Good. There we go. Long may it continue.